Alright, hello everybody, welcome to Fight Grind Radio. You know the shtick by now, this is the Las Vegas Tribune radio station. I am Bootsy, I am always tired and busy, and today we're just going to sit down and talk to a fighter like we always do. Why switch things up? It's been going so well so far. So let's talk about who we got here. Why don't you introduce yourself?
My name's Cody, my full name's Cody David. I train out of Xtreme Couture. I'm a welterweight. I do mix between amateur MMA and amateur kickboxing. Looking to go pro here probably 2015, maybe end of 2014.
Okay.
Had about 12, 13 amateur fights altogether between MMA, pancration, and kickboxing now. So looking to get a couple more fights, maybe try and get a belt here shortly and go pro.
Okay, so you're doing it the way I like. I see a lot of guys rushing themselves out here really fast. Some it's due to age, which I understand. You only got so much time.
Right.
How old are you right now?
I'm 20 right now.
Okay, so see, yeah, you've got plenty of time, and that's why you can put in those extra fights. As far as what you're doing so far, what's been the most challenging out of the sports? I mean, are they all just kind of equal but different, or is there one that's more challenging than another for you?
It's flavor of the day. Some days I'm really bad with wrestling. Some days I'm really bad with striking. Some days I feel like I can't hit nobody. Some days I feel like I can hit anybody.
Right.
And over time, as I train and get better and better, I see those days becoming less and less. But I would say that wrestling's probably the hardest because it's such a tense and constant.
Yeah, I keep hearing that from people. That's the one that unless they were born into it and have been doing it the whole time, that's the one that seems to be the real difficult, hill to ascend, essentially.
Yeah, and it's the most valuable too.
Right.
Because, I mean, if you have striking and wrestling or striking and grappling, you got your 2 points. You
right.
know? Control the fight keeping it up or control the fight keeping it on the ground.
Right. Now, did you start with a sports background, or is this something you came into?
It was actually very unathletic as a kid.
Really?
Never really got too. I played hockey here and there a little bit, Little League.
Mm-hmm.
And my first real introduction to martial arts is my dad took me down to a judo place over in North Las Vegas for a little bit, a couple months. Yeah, it was cool. I really liked it a lot, but I think they shut down or something. Just one day I went and they weren't there anymore.
That'll happen.
So I had nothing. I later on went into a military school, about 16 or 17, and I got put into a wrestling tournament. And I did that. Didn't do so well, but afterwards they left the mats out, and people started doing heel hooks, start grabbing each other's arms.
A little catch wrestling.
A little bit here and there, and then it evolved a little bit, and we started hitting each other, and, not to the face, but,
right.
When the teachers weren't looking, we were basically doing MMA, and that was, like, my first little introduction to it.
Yeah, that's, like, my first time. I've talked about it a couple times, but my first time I was just really stoned and watching Alistair Overeem fight back in 2003, and then me and my friends went, why aren't we doing something? We're sitting around watching these guys. So we just started punching each other and then wrestling each other and seeing what worked. And that was back in 2002, 2003. So we had plenty of time to develop, but it started out in that really pathetic, just stoned people sitting around going, oh, I could try it, I might as well. That didn't go so well. Definitely wasn't as you had, where you probably at least could see a future in it. We just wanted to stop being so stoned. That was our goal.
The Eddie Bravo approach.
Well, yeah, Eddie does the other way. Get extra stoned. And
extra stoned, exactly.
He's a character, though, and he's not a normal human.
No,
honestly,
phenom.
If I'm stoned and trying to roll, I forget that I'm trying to roll, and mostly I just want to talk to the person. I forget that I'm trying to do something to him, and I just want to have a conversation about stuff. So
that's great.
That never works. But so you went to Couture, you said, about 2 years ago?
Yeah, I came out here 2 years ago for the first time. I checked it out for about a month. I was living in Michigan at the time. I went back out there, and I moved out here. Actually, I kind of just put all my marbles in one basket.
Right.
Moved out, made the move. I ended up working at Couture's, and I started about 2 years ago, and I've been training there ever since.
Okay. And how's it been training there? Like, with the level of competition there, I know is pretty high, even when you're at the amateur level.
Absolutely. Like, Vegas is a different beast all in itself.
Right.
Like, seeing amateur fights in Michigan, seeing amateur fights in California, seeing amateur fights Utah, Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Vegas is just a whole different beast. Xtreme Couture was definitely a wake-up call for me. First day I walked in there, Gil Martinez's boxers, 10, 12-year-old kids were, lighting me up, beating the crap out of me.
Right.
And it was a real wake-up call. If you really want to fight, you're going to have to get with it. And that's what Xtreme brought to me, is that wake-up call of the intensity.
Right. And so you said that wrestling was the hardest one to get used to, but how is it dealing with being lit up, as he said, by people? What was it that brought you back, despite the fact that you're getting lit up by people? Are you just competitive by nature, or?
I guess I would say I'm competitive by nature in MMA, not too much in normal life.
Okay.
I just like getting better at things. I like learning things. Like, I'm a real complex person. Like, I look at something and I don't simplify things. I look at something and I make it more complex.
I see.
So I look at MMA and I'm like, all right, I can do this, and this, and
right.
then I can throw someone up in the air and then do this, and this.
Right.
So it's a challenge for me to, have fun, be creative, I've always been basically like an artist. I've never been able to do math, none of those things, like
right.
calculating numbers, things like that. Like the left side of my brain, not so much, but right brain techniques, more being, I can start with nothing on a piece of paper and then make this. And that's how I see fighting is, I start with nothing and I go, even if it means a couple bloody noses,
Right. Yeah, what do you think it is, though, about you that makes it that the bloody noses aren't? Most people, the bloody nose is the thing that goes, well, that's the thing I'm not going to do anymore.
It's all, your mind makes it way worse than it really actually is. The worst thing that can happen to you in MMA so far that we've seen is you can either get knocked out, break a bone, break your nose.
Well, we saw Mike Florio's foot come off.
I was about to say that. I saw that the other night. That was pretty bad.
Yeah, that was our Joe Theismann moment, where just something goes terribly wrong, just a bad situation.
I tip my hat to him, especially, staying with it, keeping in, because things like that can really discourage people, seeing your bone through your leg.
He was the couple days later, he messaged me and was like, hey, it's going to be a great story when I come back.
Yeah.
I was like, that's the attitude that, like, makes you, even if you don't end up going on and being like a UFC champ, you'll get as far as you can personally go if you have that mentality.
Absolutely.
Because it's so easy from that to go, forget it, this is ridiculous.
Right. Yeah, that's the level of mental toughness that you need for the sport.
He is a corrections officer, so maybe you just have to have that anyway, like, what are you going to, he potentially deals with life and death situations sometimes, so what, a foot coming off, no big deal, we'll fix that.
It's like, I train with one of the pro guys here, local MMA guys. His name's Chris Kennedy. He's also I think he's a detective here. Mm-hmm. Same thing, working on the force. He's always telling me stories, different things, and he even says that he thinks all the cops here should be doing MMA because realistically,
you got to have that in you.
You get put in situations that are more real than the cage.
Right. The hard part for them would be putting in enough time where it matters, because if you do once a week MMA, you're not going to have much.
Right.
So that could be the difficult part. Although I think detectives would love it and correctional officers if they paid them to go to like Couture's, like if there was a system to bring them in, at least 3 times a week for a good hour.
Yeah.
But you would think it would help everyone to be beneficial, but
I wouldn't quote me 100% on this because it could be bullshit because what you think, what you hear from people.
Well, you're a right-brainer, so
you never know. So I hear that over like in I want to say like Serbia and Bosnia, countries like that, the police actually train, and the police can choose to fight you at any point. And if you beat them, you get away.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah,
I would love that system. That's
fair.
I'm a little worried that would challenge all of the nefarious characters to also start training, which is good for the sport. Not great for people when they've just been mugged. That the cop's like, look, he beat me, so he gets your stuff now.
Tap me out.
Yeah, like when are you gonna? I can't help it. He just got me.
He got me. He won.
Yeah, that would be interesting. But so you also do kickboxing. You say how many kickboxing matches have you had?
I've had 3.
Okay, and how'd you do in those?
My first one, I lost to a decision. My next 2, I won by a decision, and I won by knockout. This most recent one.
Okay, and how was it being able to get that knockout then?
You know, I've been waiting for it, and it finally happened. And it was a bittersweet moment because it was cool. I was so glad that I won by knockout, but at the same time, I wanted the fight to go on longer.
Yeah, I hear that from people sometimes. We just had Sean Francis, who he had a late replacement, and he got a good quick submission, but you could tell he was a little disappointed that it didn't keep going. He had the late replacement thing. I mean, that's going to happen at amateur level.
Always.
But you could tell he'd been waiting to beat on someone for 3 rounds and have a real tough fight. And to the opponent's credit, that he came in, he was a good wrestler, but wrestlers always leave their neck and their arms.
Mm-hmm.
And so Francis did what he had to do, but you got to feel for him that he was getting ready for this war for, a good month and a half. And then it presented itself. I would say at the higher levels, you're kind of excited you get it out of the way quick.
Mm-hmm.
At the lower levels, especially guys like Francis, who's ex-military, I think what happens is that they kind of want to feel that push from someone else to know where they're at.
And Sean's an awesome dude. He was training at Xtreme Couture for a little bit back in the day before he made his debut.
Right.
And I mean, he had every hill and valley, every obstacle in between, and that guy came out on top and fucking.
I'm looking forward to a fight, but hopefully I can't have it 100% yet until the 14th. But it looks like him versus Javier Guzman is going to happen at Tuff-N-Uff, and they've been chattering back and forth about that. They're both 100% sure that they can beat the other guy. Mm-hmm. And Couture's is, I won't name names of coaches, but one of them said, Stravy goes, "We want Francis." Give us Francis. And that's just going to fuel Francis.
Yeah.
And I can only hope that Javier doesn't get hurt, because if Francis has to take another last-minute replacement guy, I'll probably end up having to fight him, because he's got to beat somebody up.
Right.
Because he's gearing for it, and especially the next show's January 24th.
Yeah.
That's a long time to train, and stuff can go wrong. But those two, I feel like if Francis, even if he breaks something or pulls something, he'll go in there anyway, because he's dying for it.
Yeah, he's definitely that kind of guy. He's I got to give it to him. He's stuck with it no matter what, and that's what it takes.
Yeah, and he's a hard worker. I see him out at Syndicate doing his thing now, and I know that Syndicate and Couture have their rivalry. I'm hoping at some point we can do a Syndicate versus Couture show, just a complete show of them, maybe some out-of-towners on the low card, but
right.
It'd be fun to have those two, because they're always jabbing back and forth, and it's one of those things, I always liken it to, like, brothers, where they give each other shit all the time, but then if people come from out of town, they're cheering each other on, They'll give each other props, and they do talk, like the coaches talk to each other, and they jab each other back and forth a little bit verbally, but at the end of the day, I think it's always that the Vegas talent supports each other.
Right.
And then gives a little dig after this.
Right. we had smokers at Xtreme Couture, and it was Syndicate versus Xtreme
Right, yeah.
Couture.
But I felt like a lot of the guys from Couture, I see the kickboxing classes, there weren't a lot of the guys in the kickboxing classes that I usually see that actually participated in the smoker.
Right.
I saw some people that I had never even actually seen at Couture's before that were quote-unquote on the Couture side.
Right.
So I feel like you guys kind of sandbag to inflate their egos a little bit.
With the criteria that they brought into the gym and the criteria that we had that day, it was just naturally a mismatch, and things like that are going to happen.
Yeah.
It's just going to happen. We come back stronger, we go back to training.
Right. Well, I love that everybody who stepped up, because they're smokers and they're not super serious, but when you're in there, they're taking them seriously. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's the one thing Syndicate guys couldn't remember is to not knee people. They have a real hard time with that. But I was trying to explain to someone who didn't really know fighting all that well that it's that muscle memory. You get into that mode, and you can't help it sometimes. And it's not the fighters. They wouldn't do it more than once or twice, but it kept happening every fight that once or twice it would happen.
Right.
And it's because they're with Master Nope out there and with Sean Yarborough, and they're training that clinch all the time. Right. It's hard to remember. You can't do it if you've put it to memory and you're in that autopilot.
When I did pancration tournaments, that was a real weird transition because of the rules change.
Yeah. If for people that don't know, do you know any of the rules that would make it real different from MMA?
At the World Championships in Hungary, the rules were that we could kick to the head, but we couldn't close fist strike to the head.
Okay.
So it was real odd because...
It's kind of like that Boss Rutan back in the day style.
Real close. And it was real odd because the whole time I'm there, like, looking to pull the trigger on a 1-2, you know,
right.
I'm trying to, you know, throw punches down the pipe to set up my kicks, do whatever I'm trying to do, and I can't.
Right.
And so you're in that position where you're thinking instead of fighting.
Right.
And sometimes that can get you in trouble.
That was my biggest obstacle when I was training, always thinking more than I was striking. On the ground, I would flow a little better, although I was actually, oddly enough, I was worse on the ground. But I could flow better, so I started to improve faster. And the stand-up, for whatever reason, I would think about it instead of just going. Mm-hmm. And it killed me because I had fast hands, I had good kicks, but I would start thinking too much. Mm-hmm. The only thing that saved me was Boss Rutan workout tapes, where he just yells out combinations, and after...
1, 2,
yeah.
power.
Yeah, exactly. Right, straight, left hook.
Yeah.
Over and over. And I got that stuck to memory now. So now if I just think of his voice in my head, I can let my punches go a little easier. Or I can just go into a Nick Diaz mode. I love doing that sometimes.
Just gets great.
But I actually, with that open, were you allowed to do the closed fist to the body?
Yeah.
Okay, because that's pretty much just straightforward what they did Pancrase in Japan, right?
Yeah, it's basically all the same.
I actually started doing that when I was training. I couldn't afford gloves, so I just had a bag and I would just do open palm strikes. And so I actually sometimes forget that I need to close my fist. Like I've been on the shelf for 4 months with a shoulder injury. And I'm finally about to get back in the gym, and I know what's going to happen is at first I'm going to have these gloves, I'm going to start slapping them.
You know, every once in a while I do that where I'll get on the bag, and I'll just do that to, you know, like cut angles and
right.
stuff.
Yeah, it's not a terrible idea so you don't hurt your fists if you're just, you know, messing around.
Someone who I think I've seen use a couple of times is Justin Driggers. He'll use an open hand every once in a while to push to. He doesn't necessarily push. He hits really
right.
Really good with it. Comes right through, pushes people down, goes right into a knee. It definitely has its purpose.
Well, if you know how to pull your hand back far enough, you can do a pretty good right straight because that's pretty much just your forearm slamming into him at that point.
Right.
So it does work. It's just hard to do properly.
Right.
You can't do it with your hand half closed because then you break all the tops of your fingers.
Yeah. Exactly.
Which no one can see this on camera, but you can see what happened to me when I did that. It doesn't really work right. Your finger gets all bent up and goes out of shape. Super fun though, because then you can flip people off that are to your right. So that's cool. But yeah, so when you were doing the pancration though, did you feel like that was harder specifically because you had to think? Like, did it create a whole new challenge for you?
Oh yeah, it was like the best way to, I would say, compare it would be, imagine if you live in a house for like 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And every time you go into the house, to your right, there's a light switch.
Right.
Hit the light switch every time you come in.
Right.
Move into the new house. The light switch is on the left. You're going to hit that light switch on the right.
I know, yeah, that's actually a very good analogy because I still do that in the new place that I'm in. I always reach to the wrong side.
Yeah.
I always do it. So you have to think about it as you walk in.
I jabbed plenty of people in the face. I
Yeah.
got plenty of warnings.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. You would think that they would just change those rules, right? I mean, MMA's been around long enough. I guess it's just tradition, or I don't know.
It was more of a tradition thing, and because I don't know that FILA really does MMA. They did a thing called combat grappling is what they called it, and it was like MMA with like full pads and stuff.
Well,
and
that doesn't seem fun.
Yeah, that's why I didn't do it. And then they had the pancration, and there was an opportunity for me because they did it at Couture's, and I got second there, and that placed me to go to the Worlds in Hungary in 2011, and it was mostly that was just to get experience, fight other people, see the world a little bit, and it was cool. I got to fight the champion, the dude. Very, very, very technical. He kicked me in the head twice.
Yeah.
For a second, didn't know where I was. Tried taking him down. He flipped me over, guillotined me, real clean. You tell he'd been training for a long, long time. He definitely earned the championship.
Right.
But overall, it was a really just good learning experience.
So do you think, you said 2015 was when you were thinking of going pro? If everything works out, obviously, the way you want it to.
Yeah, and, if all goes well, probably 2 or 3 amateur fights this year, and then at the end of that, I'll go pro.
Right. And do you have any specific leagues that you're looking at, or is it just whoever comes to you with an offer?
I'm looking I wanna drop over to Thailand at some point when funds get a little bit better.
Right.
Check out maybe Phuket Top Team, Sitman Chai.
Okay.
I know they have one FC over there.
They also have Dare in Thailand that's starting up, but it's still pretty new. But especially if you're a young guy going out there, starting out your pro career, might be good. Although I hear that sometimes you can't really rely on the check. So you got to worry about that. You got to know the right people. We should get you in touch with Mike Smith. It sounds like he's going to be going out there.
Is he?
To open up a camp. That's all hearsay right now, but it sounds like it's something that might be happening. So you could have an outlet there. That'd be good.
Yeah, that would be nice. The Asian circuit. I know, I think
you'll also be a beast out there. If you cut weight, they don't cut weight out there.
No, yeah. So it'd be a nice chance to see something different. Travel the world a little bit. And
now you're at Couture's though. What about World Series of Fighting?
That too. That's another thing that I've considered. That would probably be like my second or third promotion I'd try to get into, because I want to take it step by step.
Right.
Maybe like one FC, something like that, and then maybe moving on to a little bit higher promotions. Maybe coming back to the States, WFC. And then start looking at maybe Bellator, World Series of Fighting.
Right.
See where that goes.
Yeah. See, we need more people like you. I keep hearing people that want to go straight from Tuff-N-Uff into trying to get into Bellator, and I keep trying to use the analogy of baseball for those who don't know baseball for some reason, where you have the college ranks, then you move into single A or double A, work your way through that farm system and get to the major leagues. But a lot of people just want to go straight from college, essentially, which is the amateurs, to the major leagues. And you see it a lot if you follow the sports, especially if you're like me and you're a super nerd and you follow guys from their amateur career.
Right.
The ones that jump up too fast just get murdered, and then they have to go back down to the lower leagues, and they need to get at least twice as many wins that they would have had to if they had just progressed properly. Where, if you do it right, you can have a good 8-0 to a 10-0 low pro career, and then go to the UFC and be prepared because you've already gone through wars. If you come out of, let's say Tuff-N-Uff, if you just stayed with Tuff-N-Uff and you got a good 6 amateur fights and you try to go straight to Bellator, you could get beat up 3 times in a row, and now you're 0-3. You've got to get at least 10 wins in just to move up one rank, and they won't even look at you in UFC unless you're knocking people's heads off.
Right. It's the tortoise and the hare, really. It's like
and I get that there's worries about having your leg come off, like what happened with Florio. Like he's just bad enough what happened to him, but then it scares the crap out of amateurs where they're like, well, I don't want to do 8 fights because then maybe that'll happen.
Right.
So we got to find a way to get them to not worry so much about it. But your system makes sense, that especially going abroad, I think, is good because not only do you have to deal with. You're still going to get good fighters, especially in Thailand if you run across some Thai fighters.
Right.
You better get them on the ground.
Yeah, that's what's good about being at Randy's. I get the wrestling for that.
Right. But so it's good to go through that. You'll get some wars, especially some stand-up wars if you have a hard time taking someone down or they're a high-level Muay Thai guy. And then coming back here and working through some of the lower leagues where you're still getting a lot of guys who just blaze their way through the amateurs. Usually they don't take guys that are, 1 and 5 at amateur level.
Right.
You're getting people that know what they're doing. So it makes sense as long as you can stay healthy, though, and you have the benefit of being younger, where injuries you can come back from pretty easily. Guys like Shane Tinling at Syndicate, who's 36 and just had his first fight. I don't know how much time he has. If he gets a chance for UFC, by all means, go get it. Yeah. Don't wait around.
Yeah, any age you can pull it off, but definitely there's an advantage being younger for sure, because I can kind of take my time, I can prepare, I can get the right fights, I can get good, nice, hard fights, I can also getting my name out, getting properly getting funded for what I want to do when I do go pro. Right,
and marketing is an important part of this whole system, obviously, that people are just now starting to realize. You got to market yourself.
It's huge.
So you have guys at your gym like Justin James who did about 50 amateur fights. Clearly you're not going to be doing 50 of them. But do you worry about doing too many amateur fights just to the point of wearing down your chin or lingering injuries? Yeah, even if you don't get a big injury, you get pulls and strains, and sometimes, wrists can get a little messed up over a longer period of time. Do you worry about any of that kind of stuff? Is it just about doing the physical therapy and things like that to keep it from happening too much?
I've had minor injuries here and there, and I always seem to find a way to get around it, bounce back.
Well, yeah, but you're 20 though.
Of course, yeah, and that's what I got on my side for right now. But as far as stretching your amateur career too long, what was cool about the Pancration fights is I really didn't take no damage to the head.
Right, that's a good point.
And I still got to be in there and throw blows at someone at 100%. I got to have my 3 kickboxing. I've had 2 MMA, so a couple more MMA just to get the whole picture all back together. And I've been training probably about 3 years now. So I've taken my time to the point where I made sure that when I started, I took this shit seriously, and I said, look, if I'm gonna fucking do this, I'm gonna make sure that I want to really fucking do this.
Right.
If I throw a jab, I'm gonna try and make sure I throw the best fucking jab I can throw.
Right.
I'm gonna stand in front of a mirror and throw it 100 times before.
The old Boss Rutan, just stand in the mirror for 4 hours.
Yeah,
figure it out.
When I lived in Michigan, me and my friend Craig Funk, he trains Cruise Shank right now for his conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
But me and him would literally just be in his basement, front kick, side kick, back kick, spinning back kick,
right?
And we would just pick kicks or whatever, and we throw 1,000 each, and then we throw 1,000 punches of each, and that would just be our workout.
Yeah, it's the way to do it.
So I find myself, I find myself doing well with pros, high level amateurs now. I find that I'm able to hold my own against these guys. A couple of guys, they could beat me in a fight. I could beat them in a fight.
Right.
Any given Sunday.
Now, do you have to deal with Jay Heron when you're training?
I don't go into the pro class too much. I tend to go into the amateur, and the pros that I do train with, I tend to do more private training with.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I see Jay and Baroni, they get a little rough with guys sometimes. Well, they've been around a while, so that's kind of the way it's done.
It's like they've earned their respect. They've earned their fights. And it's like you walk in on their mat, it's their mat, and you got to respect that. A lot of things can happen there. So I've taken my time to try and show my face, earn my respect, get my time on the mat. I go into pro, mainly for wrestling if I do.
Right.
I train. Kennedy, I go up and spar with him. When Ryan Couture was getting ready for
Russ Pearson?
No, not that one. It was KJ Noons and what was the one before that? That was he fought the dude from California.
That's
Connor Hewen.
Ah.
And when it was more for Connor Hewen. A little bit for KJ, but mainly for Connor Hewen, I was like his main sparring partner for that fight.
How was that, by the way?
That was cool, actually. It was a nice little thing. Like we sparred probably for 2 months before that fight, and for the first month he just beat the living shit out of me. And like the last month I started getting keen and starting able to defend myself.
Yeah.
And it was cool because the way the game plan, the way the combinations, everything we had set up, that fight literally looked exactly like all the nights we put in at the gym.
Really?
I wish I would have videotaped it because it was so similar. He executed that game plan perfectly. And it was cool to be a part of that. That was like my first little thing of ever being a part of professional MMA.
Yeah, and that's another part of when people talk about MMA as a singular sport. I always talk about that. There's people that you spar with all the time that are helping you train. You're singular when you go out there and do your thing.
Right.
It's kind of like baseball. When you're playing baseball, you go out. It's the batter and the pitcher, and then if the batter hits the outfield. But that doesn't mean that there's not a batting coach. There aren't guys throwing balls at him. There's not guys helping them out with technique and trying to make each individual work well as a unit. It's essentially what happens, and you see it a lot at places like Couture, where everybody's got everyone else's back if they're in there, the whole time.
Yeah.
If it's not someone that comes in once a week and just, lifts a couple weights.
Right. Yeah, we all stick pretty good together. My roommate, Jeremy Munoz, he just fought at the Smoker this last weekend. He fought Kawika Lakasa.
Right, yeah.
And me and him, we're basically like our own strike team,
Right.
We're always holding mitts, we're always making each other better, we're always forcing each other to be in the gym, and it's good to have teammates like that. MMA is cool. MMA is a sport of like a lot of duality and non-duality at the same time, and like what I mean by that is like it's a singular sport as well as the team sport.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sport that you have to be aggressive, but at the same time you have to be calm.
Right.
It's like there's so many like this but that's in MMA.
Oh yeah, well it's a yin-yang situation all around, which is why I think Asia first adopted it as, like, you know, in Japan with Pride and Pancras and all that, and even rings before then. It was very much, that's what they liked about it, is that calm and almost samurai spirit of you go in there, you have to be assertive, but you have to not lose your mind.
Right.
Which, after a while, we started to see the American wrestlers take over, and they kind of lose their mind sometimes. And now it's going back the other way, where you see guys like Nick Diaz taking out Maynard, and Maynard likes to just go at people.
Right.
And Diaz is a guy who is really angry up until the bell rings, and then he's just focused, that linear focus, and he gets it done. Not to take away from Maynard, but he just got beat up in that last fight, which is going to happen sometimes.
Yeah, you got all your up-and-coming guys are real. They're looking more and more like Anderson Silva, you know.
Yeah, it's scary. I almost wish I would have stuck with it a little longer. I had to go to school. I wanted to finish my degrees and whatnot, but I remember, and I've talked to people about it, where we used to throw that front snap kick to the jaw, and then everyone was like, that's never going to work. You're going to break your toes. And so we kind of let it go, you know. We did it for a while, and then we were like, well, you know, everyone keeps saying it's not going to work, and there are people who are higher up than us, so it must be wrong. Then Anderson Silva throws it. Now everybody uses it as like a signature move. Like, that's what everybody wants to do now.
Yeah, actually, my last fight, let's see if I can't pull a picture up here. I got a couple pictures from it, but that's how I started off my win with that.
Oh yeah.
I hit him with a body kick, and it was funny too because I threw the body kick and I felt it hit, and I thought to myself, that was a fucking pussy kick. Fuck. And I was just like, I was so disappointed for that split second, but then I saw him like crouching down, like starting to, you know, his elbows were coming by his stomach, and I was like, oh hey.
You know, the first fight I had where I got the crap beat out of me. But the one thing I did that my opponent told me afterwards, I threw a body kick that I was sure was like the worst body kick of all. Like, I felt so tired. I was already beat up. I had a broken orbital bone. I had a couple broken ribs. I just threw it almost out of desperation. And he said after that, he said, man, that one I almost keeled. And I went, really? I'm all concussed. I can't. I was like, are you sure? Are you sure it wasn't just terrible and you're trying to be nice? But apparently it was the one thing I did well. I just chalked that up to playing soccer for a long time. So there was just muscle in there that worked its way in. But yeah, it's funny how some of those work. I see that a lot with boxers as well. They talk about that their jab or something, they feel like it's not snapping properly, and then they'll see their opponent start to really react to it. Do you think that just has to do with repetition?
Yeah, and you know, I've noticed something in a lot of fights, like it's not necessarily always about clobbering every single shot.
Right.
Sometimes if you just touch a guy, literally, just barely, just any type of contact on someone's face,
right?
That can discourage people.
It seems like sometimes it makes the other person, you impose reality on them, where all of a sudden they go, I'm touchable. It just happened. Like,
right.
And they have to start working on it. That's what made Anderson so great. Is for a while everyone thought he was like Neo in the Matrix, where you just couldn't hit him. There was no way it was going to work. And as soon as he started getting tagged by Weidman, you saw in him that he was like, this guy can hit me. Like, he can figure it out. And then luckily Weidman is like 225 pounds who cuts to 185. Right. So when he does hit you, you feel it. There's no way past it, no matter how good you are.
Yeah, and he comes forward with that velocity. He's like, he's not as I wouldn't say he's not as like explosive and straightforward like a train like Hendricks is, but he's got that same like same explosiveness, the same.
Right. Well, it's that wrestler thing. Those wrestlers, they have that extra gear that a lot of people don't have.
Right.
But that's another. It kind of comes all the way back around to what we were talking about, where they've been through so much adversity, just trying to cut weight, make it to tournaments, make it through tournaments at all. A lot of times they get sick because they have to cut weight so much, and they still show up and they still do their fights. So to them, dealing with one weight cut and a tough 15 minutes, while it's still hard, is not the end of the world to them. And you see other people who, I'd say about halfway through the second round, they're just dying for it to be over, and they're looking at the clock, and they can't control their breathing. So I think it's just that whole other level. And I would say And it's hard to judge all the different there's so many gyms around here, and there's so many different ways that the gyms approach it, but Couture's definitely tries to breed that extra gear that you're supposed to have.
Absolutely.
And that's why I would be terrible at Couture's right now, at least until I did it for a while, because I know myself well enough to know that if I was sparring with Justin James and he went up that extra gear, I would want to stop sparring really fast. Like, I want to be out of it.
Justin James is a pussy. No, I have to say that just because we always talk shit to each other.
Of course. You guys are closer to the Mayweather mentality than the other guys are. Mayweather's camp, they like to talk at each other.
Yeah,
I see you guys talking at each other a lot.
Yeah, we all talk shit. It's good fun. I mean,
it's a little less of a dojo than some of the other places.
It's true. It's
although don't tell Fullis I said that, because Fullis very much treats it like a dojo.
You know, it's a nice blend. I really like Fullis a lot. He's a really, really good coach. Every time that he's teaching, he's got my full undivided attention.
Yeah, and I've talked about him a couple times on the show. He has that way about him where when he's talking, you can 100% buy into it. Mm-hmm. Honestly, he could be giving me a load of crap, and I would probably say, like, 100%, that is true. Like,
right.
Cats are dogs. I love it.
He could sell me volcano insurance.
Absolutely. Yeah, he could do it. And do you think there's a inherent benefit to that, where you have trust in yourself because you have trust in someone like that?
Yeah, it's always good.
I kind of gave you the answer there as I said it, but
yeah, you know, it's always good, you know, if you have a coach, you know, that's half-assed, that's, you know,
right.
Isn't always there, isn't always, you know, doesn't seem like they're excited.
Right.
Fullis loves MMA, and that's what he's about.
Yeah, he's the guy that I don't know what he would do if he didn't have MMA. I mean, I guess he'd sell insurance if he would do it well, but I don't think he'd like it.
Right.
That passion, the reason that you can believe in what he's doing is because of that passion that he seems to have for it.
Right. And he's not only does he teach technically, but he teaches conceptually. So sometimes he doesn't teach the exact move. He just kind of teaches you, okay, instead of thinking about underhook, this, and that, just get the fuck to your feet.
Right, and I used to always get stuck in the precise motions and things because I came from the background of not having a teacher at first. What I would have to do is look at what other people did and mimic it perfectly, and that gets you trapped into situations where other people know exactly what you're doing. And like you said, Fullis is more about concept. I also always like that when he's talking about it, he gives you a reason why you're doing it.
Right.
He's never going to just say, just do it just because.
Right.
He says, because if you do this is what your opponent's going to do, and now what's going to happen.
Right.
And it makes you have to think about it. It's more almost like critical thinking in MMA.
He'll give you like some kind of medieval war story around it, and then, you know, a couple minutes later, after you hear the whole battle and everything in between, you come out with this whole new realization of how this armbar deals with that.
And there is a benefit to him speaking English as a first language, because as much as I like some other coaches, it gets a little difficult if they don't speak English as a first language, which, you know, for MMA, especially for grappling, you can just look at it and see it, but you definitely need to be able to understand basic concepts of why something's important, as opposed to just doing it for the sake of that someone told you to do it.
Right.
But that comes back to, like I said, with Steve Mikowski, who I had in here last week, who is a street fighter, essentially. That's how he started out, was just fighting on the streets and being a tough guy. And what we talked about is that he has that silly overhand right that he throws. Mm-hmm. And it seems silly except for the two people, because it does look like a football throw. I've started to call him Favre because that's what he looks like while he's doing it. It's just a big old, like he's throwing a Hail Mary. But both people that have been hit by it say, I don't care what it looks like, that hurt. Like, I stopped coming in.
Yeah.
Because it's also a weird angle that he's throwing at. They're used to dealing with a straight right hand. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden you're getting a tomahawk chop over the top and you're blocking for a straight. It's going to get through a little easier, at least until you figure it out.
Right.
I mean, Steve's got to learn how to throw a straight. We've talked about it. He knows it. You got to also have a straight. But if you throw that tomahawk sometimes, and we've talked about it before on this podcast, that's why Weidman knocked out Silva's. He threw that weird little backhand before he threw the hook. It messed up Silva's timing because he was like, what the hell was that?
Yeah, it was weird. He, like, measured him in a real weird way. Like, it was almost like he threw a 3 and then he threw one of the Benson Henderson jabs. The real side ones.
Yeah, Benson Henderson. What do you think of Benson Henderson? What's your take on Benson?
He's a good fighter, man. I don't get, some of the stuff that he does, some of his antics here and there.
Right.
But, I mean, I guess everybody's got their own thing. I mean, I can't take nothing away from the guy. He's an absolute beast. But I wouldn't fight with a toothpick in my mouth.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I don't know about that.
I've always found him to be someone who does just enough to win, which kind of annoys me sometimes. I think he cuts a lot of weight. I don't know exactly what he does, but he seems huge.
He's a big 55er.
And so I feel like either he's just drained from the cut, and so he doesn't have the power he should have, or if he's just one of those people that kind of has that GSP mentality of do enough to win, don't put yourself in danger, make sure you're dominant, and then if a win presents itself, take it.
Right.
Because it just seems like, granted, he's fighting tough people to take out, so I'm not saying that he can't beat people, outright, because if I went in there 2 minutes, I would have been submitted 3 times and knocked out twice. So, I'm not trying to take away from his skill, but there is something that we see happening in MMA, which is that people are trying to win by not losing.
Right.
They're just trying to not lose the fight. And I get it, more money's involved, more sponsorships are involved, that's going to happen naturally. But at the same time, I still like a Diaz brother who's going to go out there and just go for it. Or even like a Pat Barry who's fighting, I think, tomorrow, right? Mm. And he loses some fights. He has a terrible record compared to most.
Puts his heart out on it.
Yeah, he goes out there and he does it. And he doesn't care what anybody thinks. He loves fighting. He loves lifting weights, apparently, because he could easily be a 205er. And he refuses to do it for whatever reason. So I love the guy for it. But you can't take away from him a Benson or like a GSP especially, who's been doing it for so long. Mm-hmm. Although now I'm a little worried about GSP's mental health overall, just because of how long he's been doing it, and he's starting to take a lot of punches. And at some point, you got to step back.
Was it the Joe Rogan podcast? He was on it, and he was saying that. Because they were bringing up like alien abductions, and they were and he started talking about how he has missing time, and different things, and Joe Rogan attributes that to the fact that he has taken a lot of punishment. There's a certain point, like for me, like even for myself, I told myself like 10 years or 3 concussions, because I mean that's realistic. That's realistic to do.
Well, and what a lot of people forget is that GSP was doing karate for a long time, and he was doing karate where he was getting hit a lot. It wasn't just really simple point sparring. He was actually doing full contact karate,
getting kicked in the head.
Yeah, and getting kicked in the head you can only do so many times.
Right.
And so when you add the 7 years of MMA championships that he's had, plus the kicks to the head, and the whole thing with Aliens, for those that don't know, is he was doing some Canadian, I don't know, it wasn't a documentary, it was like a mini interview or something, and he just made a passing joke, or somebody made a joke about aliens, and he said, no, I'm afraid of that. And he laughed about it.
Yeah.
But you could tell it was kind of like, there's something there. Like, he actually believes aliens exist, which, whatever, you can believe that. But then he talked about on Joe Rogan's podcast, Joe Rogan tried to get it out of him, and he wouldn't talk about it, but he did talk about that he feels like he's missing time.
Yeah.
And that he goes a couple hours, will just be gone in a flash, and he doesn't know what it means. And, I'm not so worried about him thinking aliens might happen. I'm just worried about the fact that he's missing time.
Yeah, that's, it's probably, it could be post-concussive syndrome. Everybody's brain reacts differently to, blows. Some people you punch, like, what was it, the guy on the strip? Some dude got in some dude's face over a slot machine.
Right.
He tagged him one time, and the dude died.
Yeah, we had that where I'm originally from, is Northern California, and a football player in Chico, California, just bumped into someone at a party, and the guy, I guess, had been bumped one too many times, turned around and slugged him, and the kid hit his head on a curb, and the kid I think he's quadriplegic now.
Oh, wow.
So it just happened. It was real simple. One punch, fell down, hit the wrong thing with your head, and I think we've all done stuff as kids where now I look back and I go, I'm surprised I'm alive at this point. Because that guy just took a punch, and now he's out. He's done.
Right.
He won't be able to walk again. I've jumped off of things onto stuff that's moving. I've done terrible stuff.
Car surfing.
You never know when that one hit's going to mess you up, and all it takes is one bad blow to the head.
Oh, yeah.
And you have what like GSP has, and especially I worry about anyone who started doing contact sports real young when the brain's still developing. I'm a big proponent of that you don't allow kids to do anything that does almost certain contact and blows to the head until they're 16 or 17 at the earliest, and even later if you can help it. Stick to grappling and wrestling where you still can get hurt, but it's not the for sure like shin to the face or, slamming the back of your head on the mat kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just less likely to happen. And we see it with boxers a lot. Boxers that start real young and do contact early, they're usually not doing too well by the time they're mid-20s.
Right. Yeah.
Although then you have Mayweather, who just fights always and never seems to be hurt, but he also doesn't get hit. That's the difference.
And that's where I try to put a lot of my training into is trying not to get hit, and I'm very proud to say that in all of my like MMA and kickboxing fights, I'd probably say I haven't even been punched 10 times.
Yeah.
I get hit.
That's a good way to do it. I was hit at least 10 times in the first 15 seconds of my first amateur fight. The second, third, and fourth one I did a little more like you. I learned, and I've learned this about myself, and you may be able to speak to this as well. Grappling seems to be about trying to manipulate the other person almost like in a chess match. What you do manipulates what they can do, and then you try to capitalize on them playing defense, essentially. You put them on the defensive. Whereas in striking, it's just about imposing your own game, and then you just hope that your will breaks theirs.
Right. It's it's.
I'll have to ask Foles. We'll get Foles in here to explain it better than I did.
Striking is weird. Like in the gym, striking is like jiu-jitsu because you're not going 100%.
Right.
You can kind of think about it, but when it gets to that point where shit gets real, and your adrenaline's pumping, striking, it's more or less. I'm not so worried about what I'm doing. I'm more or less just watching what this dude's gonna do, and I'm just gonna react and pull the trigger on him.
Well, see, you're opposite of me then, because I go straight. I just am doing my thing, and that guy's going to have to figure it out from there. Like he's gonna have to figure out what he's doing, and a good counter striker can make me back up a little. Excuse me. But I like the Diaz approach, even though I don't use their constant striking. But that idea of you just do your thing, and then you impose your will, and that breaks them down or it doesn't. But they have to now decide whether or not they're going to break.
It's I started out being a counter fighter, and as time has gone on a little bit more, I'm starting to move forward more, becoming a lot more aggressive. And what's nice is I'm able to balance between the two a little bit better.
It's important quality.
I can sit back, hang out, watch, and when it's time to go, I'm committed. I'm ready.
Now, do you do that Muay Thai mentality of that you gauge them for the first couple minutes and then go in?
Yeah, my last fight, I was going to do that. I was going to kind of, get my space and watch, see where his punches were coming. And he didn't want that, so he just came in and swarmed, and we turned it into a fight. And
yeah, so sometimes you're going to get that.
It just happens.
And are you comfortable with getting punched? You said that, you can deal with the bloody nose and the getting hit. But have you ever been to that point in a fight? In sparring, there's always someone that can hit you a little hard, and you go, holy crap. But again, you're not going 100%, so you have that moment to go, hey, hold on, a little hard there.
Mm-hmm.
But in a fight, have you ever had that moment where you get hit and you go, I better either turn it on or figure out how to get this to the ground?
Thankfully, that hasn't happened. It actually hasn't happened in a fight yet.
Okay.
I've done a pretty good job keeping my hands up. And it's probably going to happen sooner or later. It's only a matter of time. It's fighting.
Well, I always say for amateurs, it's important to have that moment before you go pro.
It absolutely
Figure it out at amateur when you can take a loss and it doesn't ruin your record.
Right. I took a real big shot back in the day training from a 205er, and that's why I don't train with heavyweights or 205ers anymore after this. But I took a pretty good shot from him, and it clouded my head for a little bit, and I walked around for a little bit, and I ended up passing out after a while.
Oh.
But
that's a good reason to stop training with the 205ers then.
Yeah, I've been hit. I think he probably hit me as hard as he could.
Right.
And knowing that anybody my weight, if they could hit as hard as him, if that's the worst I have to deal with.
Right. Well, that kind of comes back to what we talked about before, that once you start getting hit, if you go into it and you deal with it and you don't come out and feel defeated or break down, you do realize you're not made of glass.
Right.
And you do realize, okay, so I can handle this. Now, we all have that point where we become Chuck Liddell.
Right.
And then you start getting knocked out at everything that's going on because your body just can't handle it anymore. But you got to go through getting beat up a little bit to realize that you can handle that stuff. Grappling is a little different, where pretty much from the get-go, you're just losing all the time.
It's true.
I think Sam Harris coined the phrase, maybe he took it from someone else, but I think he coined it, which was getting comfortable with drowning.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what grappling is. You can't really do that with striking. You've got to figure out a way to not drown every time, or you're never going to make it.
Right.
But with grappling, it's just getting comfortable with that feeling of being super uncomfortable, struggling and failing over and over again, and then finally figuring it out. Now, do you like the wrestling or the... well, you kind of said you almost have kind of a catch wrestling, it sounds like. Or that's what you like. So it's a hybrid of doing jiu-jitsu and wrestling, essentially.
Yeah, I'm currently working towards my purple belt, so I'm blue belt right now. And, I've had a couple of years of wrestling. I've had wrestling under Kyle Griffin. I've had wrestling under Brian Keck back when he was Xtreme Couture the first day, back when my first day. And both extreme solid, very solid wrestling coaches pushed, and drilled the shit out of me. So it was cool because now I've kind of got that more of a hybrid style.
Right. Do you like the submissions or the knockouts more if you get to choose? If you get to impose your game? Or do you just like finishing people?
Honestly, out of all three, if I could hold someone down and beat them till the ref pulls me off,
okay.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, why not? Where someone else has to step in and say,
right? Okay. This is enough. Because I've submitted people. I've got 2 first round submissions and 1 first round knockout, and submissions were cool. The knockout was cool, but I definitely want to get that TKO now. Like really? I'm looking to hold someone down and grind them out for a little bit, beat them up, and just every time they squirm, have an answer for it.
Right. See, I was always a big fan. I get why people like the submission thing because it's the other person has to admit that you're better than that, and everybody kind of likes that. I personally like the one where their body literally shuts down because of me. Like, I just like that, where everything, their body decided this can't happen anymore.
Right.
And so it shuts down for them.
Yeah.
I always liked that one because I always feel like someone's will can just be broken, and there's people, I won't ever know if that guy was good or if I was good, essentially. That's how I always felt about it. Mm-hmm. But if I knock him out, I feel like I beat his body. Like, it wasn't even him that I beat.
Yeah.
I took him out of the equation, and his body stopped.
Right.
So I always liked that idea. But I hated it when it was trying to happen to me. Luckily, I stayed awake for my loss where I got the crap kicked out of me. But I might as well have been asleep.
Right.
Because I don't remember most of it. Yeah. But I hear I got pretty beat up. So it was pretty bad.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I have a Forrest Griffin sort of consciousness where I am getting beat up and I'm not really aware it's happening anymore, and I'm just going.
Yeah.
I'm glad that my body does that because it means if there is some animal chasing me, I might survive even though I have personally checked out.
Right.
So that'd be nice. But, so when you get to these amateur fights, is this going to be something where are you interested in the accolades of amateur to try to sell yourself as a product, or are you just interested in getting these fights over with so you can move on to the next thing?
I would say a mixture of both.
Yeah, politician's answer.
Hell yeah. It's, and that's what's funny is, like, it's so true. You really have to be somewhat of a politician in the sport.
Yeah. You can thank Sonnen for that.
Yeah, he kind of opened the door for that.
Right.
But, I'm trying to promote myself at all times, really, because promoting myself as amateur could possibly mean money, could possibly mean gear, could possibly, it could be just making life easier on me.
Right.
But the sooner I get to the point where I'm getting paid to do what I love, that's
well, I keep telling these amateurs the thing that'll make the difference between you and the 9,000 other people that are 4-0 or whatever you are, or 7-2, is if people can remember you for whatever reason. So just find that thing that you are that makes you interesting.
Right.
And you don't have to create a persona.
Right.
Just embellish your own or just make yours known.
Mm-hmm.
Just be that personality. And we've seen with, like, Roxanne Modafferi, you don't have to be Chael Sonnen. You don't have to be Nick Diaz. If she's a nice person, she's just nice.
Right.
But she puts it out there. She doesn't hide from it. She's just, I'm this nice person. I do quirky things. And it sells. It works. Right. Whether or not she feels... I don't think she's trying, like, making a conscious decision to push herself. But it's silly of her if she doesn't recognize that it's something that's sellable and people notice it.
One of the things, like, I do after my fights is I speak a little bit if I win.
Right.
I'll speak a little bit, and I'll bring something up. Like my last fight, I brought up how the media in the United States was not covering the revolutions going on in Brazil.
Oh, you're like a Jacob Volkman going out there political.
A little bit, yeah. I feel like every person, you're put on this earth, for your reason, your purpose, and things like that. And I was given 2 hands and a mouth, so I'm gonna go out there and fight, and then afterwards I'm gonna get off what I can off my chest.
Well, it gives you you got the opportunity.
Right.
Why not utilize it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's definitely more sellable than if you just went there and were like, whatever you guys want, I just put on a good show.
Yeah.
We gave 110%. It went my way.
Yeah,
Those are the people everybody forgets.
Right.
I see Brian Caraway sometimes,
mm-hmm.
and I always want to talk to him about it, but it's a rough subject where people like to demonize him. But I would if I was his manager, I would be like, look, play that up. Like, be that guy.
Yeah.
Because who cares? I mean, people are going to be mean to him anyway.
Right.
So just go for it. Like, just hand it up. You saw what happened with Sonnen. People started not liking him, and so he went, oh, okay, I can do this. And it's worked out well. And Brian I've talked to him a few times. He's the nicest guy when you meet him.
Yeah.
You expect, if you just read stuff online, you'd think he was some sort of, like, sniveling, backstabby guy. He's a nice guy. He's just a regular dude who's, he loves to fight and he likes to train, and he just got the short end of the stick for whatever reason because somebody got popped for marijuana, and he wasn't afraid to be like, yeah, I could use money. It's one of the weirdest things to me. There's a lot of fans who talk about that fighters should get paid more, and then when they get paid more, the fans hate them. They get so mad. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
But being the political guy, talking about stuff like what you said you were talking about, which were the revolutions were?
Brazil.
Yeah, see, talking about that kind of stuff, that gets a name for you. And I know for a fact, because I used to cover sports and I was a sports journalist, that they always key in on that kind of stuff. They may not always pick it up that time, but if you consistently do it, sooner or later they start knowing you as that guy that does that. They know you now.
Yep. And
so it does work. So you said 2 or 3 fights, correct, at amateur?
Yeah.
But that's over a 2-year period. Well, I guess only one more full year.
Yeah, because we're coming into 2014.
Right, I keep forgetting that. I don't know what year it is. I've been in the third world for the last couple of years, so I don't know. I forget stuff.
Yeah.
I was just trying to find food. I wasn't worried about what year it was.
Yeah, I still don't have internet yet, so I'm getting out of that.
Right. So, I mean, clearly your goal is to get paid to fight, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And would you care if you ended up getting more of an opportunity in, say, kickboxing, something like that? Would you do that instead? Or do you just want to stick with the MMA?
Honestly, I never really considered that too much, but, that's something I would do.
See, I'm a great manager. This is why people need me on the side, because I'll think of things like, why don't you do something else? That's the kind of brains it takes. Right. That's left brain thinking. But yeah, so because we have lion fight around here, and we have places like that, so there are opportunities to do that kind of stuff. But I'm a person who would rather do kickboxing, and I don't think I would do MMA, as a profession. I like training it. I like to roll around sometimes and lose terribly on the ground. But kickboxing always made more sense to me, and I see the opposite because I'm around the MMA gyms a lot, where people go, yeah, I guess I'd do a kickboxing match, but I wouldn't make it a career. Right. So, but if you had that opportunity, I guess the big thing is if it paid, you'd probably take it up for at least a little while, right? Mm-hmm. You could always parlay that into going into something else.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like there's nothing I love kickboxing. I don't leave a kickboxing.
As long as you can close your fist, right?
Right. Yeah. I don't leave a kickboxing match going, oh shit, I wish I could have taken that person down. I wish I could have done this.
Right.
I had fun. I hit somebody. They hit me. Fucking cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, we gotta wrap this up. The hour went by quick, but do you have any sponsors or anybody that you want to say anything for? Unless it's just Couture. That's your one thing.
I'd like to say shout out to Bred for Battle Combat Sports. They're out of Sacramento, and they're always helping me out. They're always sending me clothes, sending me different things. They've been tremendous help. My training partners, Jeremy Munoz, Chris Kennedy, and then my family, my friends, everybody else that supports me.
And your dog, which you've had here, has been very good to not make any noise.
Yeah, he's been asleep the whole time.
Yeah, well, I put people to sleep pretty easily. That's my gift. All right, well, this has been Fight Grind Radio on Las Vegas Tribune radio station, and I will see you, next week? I'll see you sometime. You don't really care. You listen to the podcast anyways, I know it.